yellow. Today is Monday, October 28th, and this is the BSH Brief. This is the BSH Brief. I'm Ryan. It is dark in here, and the Philadelphia Flyers are certainly a hockey team. The Flyers are coming off a 4-game week, and they went 1 for 3 out of those 4 games. So our crops are very much dying. The Flyers began the week with a home-and-home set against the Washington Capitals, and it was an entire thing. The Flyers came out in the first game Tuesday night and looked absolutely just dreadful. They fell by a score of 4-1, and they managed just 18 total shots on net. So at one point, it looked like the Flyers were getting set to kind of make it a little bit of a game when Travis Sanheim came out early in the third period and netted one to make it a 2-1 game. But that didn't last very long. The Capitals immediately responded and crushed all of the Flyers' hopes and dreams. What could have been a really, really fun finish ended up being one of the Flyers' least exciting games of the entire season so far. About 24 hours later, the Flyers came out for Game 2 of the back-to-back and looked maybe even worse than they did in Game 1, which is an accomplishment in itself. They logged just 3 shots on goal in the first period, and I think like 2 of those shots were just little dribblers that went in on net from a distance. So they barely count. Ivan Fedotov, meanwhile, he got to start that game and he continued to look real bad. He basically let in 4 goals in the game's first 27 minutes and everyone was freaking out. Everyone was pulling out their hair, demanding he get sent down to Lehigh Valley. It was an entire whole mob scene. But then the game's midway point happened. Out of literally nowhere, the 2024-25 Philadelphia Flyers looked like the 1998 Detroit Red Wings. Travis Konechny netted a goal, Owen Tippett ended his goal-scoring drought, and then the Flyers were just off to the races. They were dominating puck possession, they were creating high-danger scoring chances, and just overall, they were looking like a functional hockey team. Matvei Michkov scored a power play goal early in the third period to make it a 4-3 game, so the Flyers very much, for a moment there, looked alive. But later on, with the goalie pulled, we witnessed one of the most insane line changes possibly to ever occur on NHL ice. Igor Zamula, right before the puck was passed to him, turned around and just went to the bench for a line change. Owen Tippett, he was on the ice. He couldn't touch the puck because he was afraid it would be a too many men penalty. And then Pierre-Luc Dubois just swoops in like a bird, and he takes the puck and he just nets an empty netter like it was nothing. Head coach John Tortorella later came out and said that goal is actually on him because he was pretty much screaming at Igor Zamula to get to the bench. He was taking a lot of heat, so that clarification is kind of good. But still, that was just, it was miserable. The Flyers went on to lose that game by a score of 6-3, extending their losing streak to 6 games. Awesome. Saturday afternoon, though, against the Minnesota Wild, that's when things got fun. The Flyers remembered how to score goals. 7 of them, to be exact. Sean Couturier's scoring drought, a thing of the past. He scored not 1, not 2, but 3 goals, giving him just his second hat trick of his career, which is kind of surprising. Couturier was outstanding against Minnesota, but he probably wouldn't have logged that hattie if it wasn't for the help he got from Matvei Michkov and Travis Konechny. That TK Coots-Michkov line was phenomenal, and they got the tone set early when they scored a pair of goals within the game's first 4 minutes. The Flyers had to fight for it in typical Flyer fashion, but they did end up securing their second win of the season, just eking out that 7-5 victory over Minnesota. They went right back to work Sunday evening against the Montreal Canadiens for the second game of their second back-to-back of the week, and typically the second game of a back-to-back means that Ivan Fedotov would be getting the start in net. But he didn't. Instead, it was Alexei Kolosov himself, in real life, in the flesh, making his NHL debut as the first Belarusian goalie in the history of the NHL. Of course, there was a time, maybe a month or so ago, that it appeared that Kolosov may never play for the Flyers ever. But he did, and he was not amazing, but you could easily argue that he looked considerably better than Fedotov. He made 20 saves on 24 Montreal shots, and a couple of the goals he allowed were pretty unstoppable. One was a redirection, and the other was this kind of pinball-looking thing going on down in the low slot. The other two, those weren't very good. But still, we'll give him some slack. It was his first game ever as an NHLer. What are you going to do? Unfortunately for Kolosov and the Flyers, they fell into a 4-1 hole in the second period, so not looking great. But then, late in the third period, because of the Flyers, Travis Sanheim got in there and he netted his second goal of the night. So he was on Hattie watch. And then, seconds later, Travis Konechny scores, and now all of a sudden we got ourselves a game. It's 4-3. Flyers pull Kolosov. They're throwing everything they can at the net. They can't get anything past Caden Primo. And then they lose by a score of 4-3. Not awesome, but at least it was kind of fun to watch. Sanheim and Scott Laughton both spoke to the media after the game, and they both seemed really dejected after this game, like particularly upset. They used the word disconnected as a way to describe the Flyers' play recently, which obviously is not what you want to hear. Scott Laughton basically admitted, like, yeah, we scored 7 goals against Minnesota, but, you know, we only had 6 shots on goal through 2 periods, so what good is that? Frustration definitely seems to be kind of building up a little bit in the Flyers locker room. Doesn't seem like they're frustrated with each other, just kind of frustrated with their game as a whole, which is very understandable. Some news and notes. Cam York is set to miss at least 2 weeks. He has been placed on injured reserve. We don't know exactly what his injury is, but we do know that it is upper body. Correspondingly, the Flyers recalled defenseman Emile Andre from Lehigh Valley. As you may remember, Emile Andre was recalled from Lehigh Valley very early in the season when Nick Seeler was out to start the year, and then he came back, and Emile Andre never played a single minute while Nick Seeler was out of the lineup. But Andre did play Sunday night, and he looked all right. Looked a little jittery, you know, didn't look perfect, but he looked very much involved in the play, and he didn't look like he looked at the beginning of the 23-24 season where he was just completely, clearly overmatched. It's not like he was a blemish out there or anything like that. He looked like he belonged, and that's good. Of course, Andre entered the lineup because Igor Zamula was the healthy scratch. Zamula has had a really, really rough start to the season. He has not been good. He's had a lot of downs and not many ups, so it doesn't really come as much of a surprise that he was sent to the press box. If Andre struggles at some point, wouldn't be shocking to see Zamula come back in. But given how not very good he was to start the year, and given how not bad Andre looked in his first game of the season with the Flyers, maybe he sticks around for a bit. For right now, as long as Cam York is out, it does seem like Emile Andre is going to have a little bit of leash here, so we'll see what happens. Looking ahead, the Flyers have 3 games on the docket this week. They'll face off against the Bruins in Beantown on Tuesday, and then they'll come home for a game against the St. Louis Blues on Thursday, which is also Halloween, so let's get weird, baby. And then on Saturday, the Flyers will play against the Bruins again, but this time in South Philly for a matinee. The Bruins have absolutely owned the Flyers the last few years, so it would be kind of nice to see the Flyers get at least 1 win against them this week. But that is very much wishful thinking. For more Flyers news and analysis and dumb stuff, please be sure to go to our website, broadstreethockey.com, and be sure to follow us on all of our social channels. Until next week, enjoy the hockey. BSH forever.